what is the role of corporates in scaling European champions, right? So I would like to invite my guests of this panel on the stage. Isabelle, please. Isabelle Varnier, I will present you in a couple of minutes. Please come and join me. Of course, Anne-Laure, I'm sorry, I have to look at my notes at the end of the day, from Metron, and Upen. Please join us. So take a seat here, maybe if you want to have some more space. No, sit. Yeah, take a seat. Yeah, sure. So we have one, maybe I can give you one, two. So first of all, I would like to introduce our panelists around this topic of, so we talked about the governmental side a little bit at noon, right? So do startups and scale-ups have everything they need in Europe to scale properly? And one of the questions that we have since the beginning of the European Champions Alliance is the role of corporates. So we have a group that is discussing for a couple of months now exactly on this topic. So what can corporates do to better support European startups and scale-ups in their scaling journey? So I will first of all present those three wonderful people who are here with me. So Isabelle, so you're the Senior Vice President, you're a Senior Vice President at Evident, responsible for the Global Startup Accelerator, the Scaler. So you successfully created and launched the Accelerator program in 2020, and you have since then onboarded more than 27 startups from around the world in the Scaler, with a focus on decarbonization and security. And so these startups enrich, of course, Evident's portfolio and bring, industry by design, highly selected and secured solutions to your customers and to their customers while helping startups grow internationally. So you joined Atos in 2012, so a couple of time ago, and now Evident. And you previously held management positions in marketing communication at Alcatel, so now Nokia, so you have a lot of changes in names. And you're also known for your influencer marketing and analyst relation programs. So welcome on the panel and thank you for being here. Then Anne-Laure, so you're Chief Business Transformation Officer at Metron. You will tell us a little bit more about what you do. A leading French clean tech supporting industry and tertiary market in their energy optimization and decarbonization efforts. So you joined Metron in 2020, so in COVID times, right? As VP Marketing and Communications to accelerate the internationalization of Metron after 10 years of supporting European energy providers and service companies' expansion at the time of energy market opening across Europe. Welcome. And then last but not least, right, Upen. So you're VP and Head of Future Hub Engagement at SAP, where you foster collaborations using a fusionist approach, and we will hear a little bit more about this also after this panel. So you have created pioneering business experiences and initiatives drawing on your expertise in technologies, management and innovation. You're a certified global business transformation master. And, sorry? Yes, something like that. And you are also design thinking and business innovation and futuring coach. So we will hear more about you after this session, but now I want to go directly in the questions. And I would like to start with you, Anne-Laure. So before we go into detail, can you briefly pitch to us, Metron, what you're doing and the relations you have with corporate players?
Well, thank you for inviting me here today. I'm very pleased to introduce you who is Metron. Metron is a French clean tech which has been developing for 10 years an energy management and optimization software. So what do? We help large industrials, large retail and services companies to take control of their energy performance. How do we do so? We are helping in giving an executive layer of all the energy performance inside of the company with a visualization of multi-site results, data analytics about how they are performing in energy consumption, helping C-levels to take to make better decisions and to benchmark, compare sites between themselves and having best practice sharing practices. And we also help in-depth optimization of all energy consumption into the sites, the processes, the assets. We go very in-depth in the optimization to help daily all the operators working with better efficiency and making, once again, better decision. At the end, what we do, we help reducing cost, of course, but we help also track carbon impact of all the actions that have been done within the group in order to see exactly how the energy performance can participate to the sustainability effort of all the teams. So how do we work with corporates? Huh? That's the second question. So we have been working for 10 years with corporates, directly in B2B model with big groups like Danone, ArcelorMittal, and so on. And we are also working on an other business model with long-term alliances like Dalkia from EDF Group, like Edison in Italy, and NTT Docomo in Japan, as building an embedded solution within their own services. How do they use our solution to deliver better services to their final customers?
Okay, I think we're going to get back to that a little bit later in the discussion. Now, Isabel, to you. So you, as we said in the introduction, you have launched the Scaler in 2020 and have accompanied almost 30 companies, 27, 30. Tell us a little bit how you do that at Evida.
So first, Scaler was launched in 2020, but obviously we work with startups for much longer than that, and with much more than 27 startups, right? It's, in fact, the DNA of Atos and Eviden is very, very innovation and technology focused. So we have labs and organizations everywhere to work and engage and co-innovate with startups. And so the idea came from this experience with startups in a given country or with a given account, and how we could scale some of the successes that people have in a country. So it started with identifying and working with people on the field to identify startups with ability to grow international. And Scaler was created to do that, right? It's really to identify startups we already know or engage with, a startup and scale up, really very large scope of companies, and really to identify them, onboard them, and help them grow as they enrich our portfolio. So we select startups with solutions which are integrated in our portfolio, and we go to market with them. So how we do that, it's really, so we first have a long phase of getting ready to go to market. So it's a bit frustrating for startups because it takes almost 6 months or some time, but really to work on a joint value creation. It's really very important to make sure we get the support of the sales and all the organization to push and promote the startups to our customer. So we sit together, we really identify, and we don't want to be an agent of startups, right? It's not the purpose, but we really work for joint value proposition. When this is clear, we go for sales enablement campaigns with training, explaining, sharing at the Atos level so that all the people can be aware about what we have in our Scaler program. And then we go to market. We identify joint customer interest. And that's what we do for 12 to 18 months for the first 3 years. And now we will expand to 2 years because we realize the timeline is quite long. So that's how we work.
Thank you, Isabel. Upen, so again, last but not least, we also talked about it. So in SAP, you have various initiatives working with startups at different stages also of development. So tell us a little bit how you see in a nutshell the question of open innovation as SAP and your ecosystem.
Thank you. Fantastic panel. Happy to be here. Look, SAP has got innovation in its DNA. We are a startup created in 1972 with 5 people when the word startup did not exist. So it's been a very interesting journey on how we ourselves became a corporate and then started working with the startups, right? So it's very, very very interesting. So both organic innovation-wise, disrupting yourself, and as well as inorganic. So what is inorganic? In the past, it was called inorganic anything that doesn't really come just from your own, let's say, employees that report into you only. But the value really is when we talk about open innovation ecosystem, and that's where the startups, the scale-ups play a big role. We have multiple ways in which the startups at different stages. I mean, in the end, startup is what? It's just a stage of a company, and I think we are very, very devoted to support each of the stage. We have a sell mode, which is called Grow at SAP. You'll hear a lot, about this in the next days. We just launched a fantastic campaign for public cloud, totally lowering the entry barriers so that you can build technology strategy right when you're thinking to grow and planning to grow. Second is where it's of course the invest mode, right? There's Sapphire Ventures, constantly looking for investing into different high-performing startups, different focus areas, and finally SAP.io, and it's on purpose. It's a small I, big O, small input, large output. That's where we actually go in a partnership mode, zero equity, zero investment, and I'm very happy to share that SAP.io. We operate now at globally 11 foundries, and I'm very proud to say 45% of the startups are represented by diverse founders, so female and diverse founders. So we're very committed to that. So various avenues to work with us. Yeah.
Okay, so you have to share your experience with us because we are not as diverse as we would have liked it to be today, because it's always complicated. I mean, this panel is, so we are really, it's a really good panel for talking about this. Great, so when we prepared the panel, Anne-Laure, so we talked about 3 major topics that we wanted to discuss a little bit more in detail here on how you, as a scale-up, can get support from corporate players and what is really important for you more on a, I would say, practical level, right? Because many things about execution, scaling, just expanding in Europe. So the first, which is always a tricky one because it's complicated to have a corporate talk with you, talk about you, promote you, basically, because they're a client. But it's something that is very important for you, is to do joint communication, to get approval of corporates to be able to communicate about the project, to give a couple of details, numbers, everything that can then incite other corporates also to engage the conversation with you. So why is it so important for you, and how have you experienced it in the past? Maybe a good example to tell us.
Yes, in fact, joint communication can seem a simple point, but it's a very tricky one for us because it's all about trust. When you are a startup, when you have to prove that you are relevant to work with corporates, how they can trust you and work in very strategic project and not just POC, just pilot project, as it's very often the case. So it's crucial for us. It's crucial for expanding within an account when you are working with a corporate group, because you're always starting with a POC or with a first site. So how we can expand. So we have to have the support of the communication for that. And it's also very important to expand on the territories because corporates are believing in peers. It's always an effort for them to give us a chance to a first try working with them, and they believe their peer is one have done the choice once. It can support and fasten the way we will be working with the other one. So it's a point that it's progressing, but it's still difficult. First thing, industrial don't like to share their secret recipes. So once they have identified a good startup, they not always want to share what they have identified as a good support in their operations. Second things, they want first results because it's a matter of trust for themselves also in their market. So we have to wait for first results, but that's fair enough. We totally understand that. But after that, when we have our sponsor, which have his first achievement, he's proud of it and want to promote it, we have the communication barrier. And this one is a strong one because communication department in corporate groups has lots of strategic challenges to face, and they don't want to take risks communicating on a startup achievement because they don't really see what is the added value, the immediate added value for their groups. So we have to face this barrier, and I think it's moving because it's a good momentum for them also to show that they are innovative, they are able to work with new technologies, so they have their own interest in doing so. And we have lately a very good example of that. We are starting working with Safran Helicopters a few months ago. And they've been very supportive. First of all, they say, we need to have first results before communicating. Okay, fair enough. But when the very first result comes, we ask them to support a very innovative program. I think we will have the opportunity to talk about it later. And they say, okay, let's come into our site with your prospect, with press, with partners. We'll show how we use your solution. We will promote it because we are proud of the results we have achieved with you. And we have a very important sequence with them, a proof of trust, which makes the difference. And I really believe that they have a kind of good opportunity for them to promote the way they are acting in their sustainability roadmap, but they also give us the opportunity to grow and to work with competitors in their market also. So it seems like we can be optimistic in the way that they are acting with us, but it's a very important thing to raise the awareness of communication department, how they can add more flexibility in the way when they are dealing startups which are not like all other counterparts they can face.
So it's a question of a little bit more risk-taking, maybe, also for the corporates?
Yes, definitely. I think it's part of their responsibility. If they want to help us to build a European tech sovereignty, they need to support us and to promote the way we are acting daily in making Europe stronger in the tech world. So it's part of their responsibility.
Yeah, and I think also what is important is that when you try to, as we did also today, everyone that you try to attract for an event because you want to talk about your topic, might it be the press, might it be other corporates, might it be, it's different if you have a big corporate calling to the press, we're doing an event, everyone will come. If it's the startup who says, we're doing an event, everyone will say, okay, so what? So I think this is also something that is really important, is this power of attracting the right people and putting the right people in the room. So then I hand over to you to see, Isabelle, how are you're supporting your startups with a lot of communication also? What works best? What do you do? And what really makes a difference for them?
So big difference on our side. Communications is very happy to support us. And that's not where I struggle, because of course we struggle. So it's true, trust take time, right? And it's, of course, when we come with small startups, and we want to convince the sales to go with you at a customer, it's not an easy thing, right? It's innovation, right? They all love to talk about innovation, but then there's a bit of risk-taking to bring a new partner and a small partner. But in terms of communications, how do we support? Right? Of course, internal and external are both very important to evangelize internally, not only about the individual startup, but also about change of culture, to work with a startup. What does it mean? What is the benefit you're going to take out of it? So this, we have campaigns, and I have a dedicated person in my team, Madeleine, sitting over there. She's dedicated to marketing and comm for scaler startups. And we have a complete program to really work on the brochures, messaging, videos. We make a heavy use about digital marketing. And as you said, when you have a success, right, to share, and sometimes it's a bit complicated to have a press release under the brands of Atos for a small contract with startups. But most of the time, we get support. It's really more the fact to find the right moment into their calendars of announcement, to find the right moment to make the announcement. But really working with, leveraging the global ecosystem of our partners in Atos Eviden now, right, is really one of the big pillars of our strategy. So coming with scaler and startups as partner, as a way to embark the ecosystem, is really completely, and that's really the voice of the CEO, it's part of the one pillar which is important to differentiate and grow. So in that respect, I don't have to fight internally to get attention for communication with Scaler and startups. So that's a good thing. And, and externally, so internally, so we do all the sales enablement, training, newsletter, very classic communication. The less classic thing that we succeeded to do to really spread the news and the evangelize internally is the usage of what I call business captain, right? It's really to identify someone, and we didn't do it for the first wave, but the second time we identified this as a key success factor. To have somebody, and Bartosz is one of them, to find someone who is so enthusiastic about the startup is presenting to the program that he will be pitching with the startup to be selected by the jury and is following and is being the best ambassador ever of the startup internally. So beyond the campaigns, the sales enablement we put together, yeah, we call it the champion, but we call it the business captain, but he's really very close to business, right? Yeah, Carlos is the champion. And he helps navigate, so he's really supporting Scaler team, of course, but he helps navigate the big corporate organizations, the processes, and so on, to accelerate and make the success. That's really the internal, I would say, success factor, but which is, I think, specific to our company. And externally, we use also for social media, as I said, the digital marketing, and we try as much as we can, to be invited in a customer meeting, of course. And we have a new program which is about customer innovation strategy sessions with our tier 1 customer. So we work also with the customer innovation people to look at the agenda, what is on the roadmap of a customer, that we could complement with startups related to this topic. It's not working easily. It's complicated. It's tough. And with my new boss here today, we are also thinking of going more direct. That's a new thing we want to do, because it's to convince internally to be invited. Yeah. That's a good thing. We need to be part of a global process. But we also want to develop more direct activity towards customer in terms of customer activity with the startups.
That's a great initiatives, and I'm sure, Upin, you can complement with maybe some additional topics, because you, as SAP, of course, you have a huge communication platform all over the world that you can use also for your startups and for the corporations. So how do you, what are the maybe a couple of examples that you can tell us about?
Thank you. Yes, and I completely agree with both of you, right? The fundamental is the strategy, and then, you know, if it's your company strategy to work with startups, and your CEOs and your CTOs are personally invested, it becomes a lot easier. We have another advantage that the bottom up is equally invested too. So you know, we can just multiply the effect. So that's really good. We have, I'll give you a couple of practical examples on it. It's very easy to say, let's do joint communication, but what do you do really? What is that joint communication that makes sense for your customers, for your internals? And for the startups who are participating as well, that should make sense too. So the first one, we realized, look, there are different models in which different companies would invite startups to work with them. Few companies do it because they want to fill their own white space. The communication strategies look very different during that. That's more internal. And what we do with SAP IO, the partnership model and grow, it's towards external. We want that those startups will bring in a benefit to our customers. So the communication, the integrated communication there is very focused to the problem that we are solving together. And that helps. We also invite our customers to join the demo days of the startups that are in our cohort. Not only that, some of them actually join even the selection process, because in the end, it's their problem that we're going to solve. They're happy to give those challenges. And then we continue that journey towards the POCs and then also into the sales motion. And there are some incentives that basically also our sales guys benefit from. So it's really an end-to-end communication life cycle, if you will. Of course, we learned. We started slowly, and then doing this across all the SAP's geography. That's interesting. But we're very happy with the kind of support we get. But important is do the communication with purpose towards whose problem we are solving and with whom we are solving.
Thank you very much. So there's a second important topic that we talked about, of course, which is maybe one of the most important ones, is European growth and access to market. So, of course, you, Metron, so you started in France and then you expanded to other markets. And what have been your experiences with corporates who helped you cross the border, who helped you get a foot in the door? And what would be your expectations for the corporates that you're already working with in France, helping you, do the leap into another country market?
Yes, that's a very important topic. That's a big challenge for a startup. Metron today is 9 offices all over the world. We are present in APAC, in Americas, all across Europe, in more than 20,000 sites. But it hasn't been easy to develop in Europe. Our first international customers were in Americas, in Latin America, rather than in Europe. And that's quite surprising because we are neighbors and we should be working more closely. We have experienced different countries. We have tried to develop in the UK, in Germany, and it has been very hard. And I come back to these experiences. And we have developed in Italy and in Belgium with good successes, but with external growth in the end. So that's quite different. But when we are talking about organic growth, it has been very difficult, and I will take the example of Germany because I've been talking about that, which is a very tough market. So we have hired a salesperson speaking German. We have built a relationship with a German distributor there. We have been working in developing all our sales kit, all our material in German, and sending our sales guy in Germany, etc., etc. Lots of efforts, events, spending money, and in the end, no site, because they are all asking, but have you already one site in Germany? Say, okay, that's the dilemma of the chicken and the egg. How do we do? We need a first site, and you want us to have a first site before signing with us. So it's very complicated. And to be honest, we didn't hack that. We stopped Germany for the moment because we need to invest massively. For what we understood, if we want to go to Germany with an office, maybe external growth, we don't know. But for the moment, it's something we didn't hack. And when I'm talking with other startups from French tech, because we are within the green entry of the French tech, they have the same issue. And we have some corporates helping us, like Danone, who is pushing us in different sites all around the world. But in the end, it's very specific to one group. And we don't find a magic trick to work with corporates on an international way with European neighbors.
So again, I hand over to the ones who can then solve the problem. Because I think, Evident, Atos, you're a global enterprise, as is SAP. So how can you practically help open a door, as we talked about door opening today a lot, for your companies and help them expand and land in other countries?
So that's a tough question, because it's true. I said at the beginning that the promises of Scalar is to help you grow international, right? That's the value we promise to startups. In reality, we help you grow, it's true, but it's not in all the cases go international. That's because I face the same problem. Technology innovation is international, is global, but in reality, customers are and not only customers, even our internal people, they are happy to support a startup from their country. And we see it, right? So, of course, our customers are international. So, in our teams, right? My boss is in the UK, my team's in other countries, but we are all also international. So we may be talking to people, who are, even if it's a German brand name, you have other people from other countries that you talk to, right? So but it's not easy. I must recognize that. So the way we do it is true, but it's we target accounts, right, in terms of company, not about where they are located specifically. But and we have the meetings quite easily at customer to come with the startups, to come with Scalar. It's it's working quite well when we come with this topic about open ecosystem, highly qualified startups. But to go to POC and deals, it takes some time. That's why we expand the timeline of Scalar to 2 years, which it's big, right? For at the time line of a startup, 2 years is big, right? But it's not easy. So I don't have a secret recipe there, unfortunately. It's really convincing, one person to person. So we're trying, we're pushing, we sign deals where we signed 21 deals in the past 18 months with our startups. So it's working, but it's not easy. And but the willingness of a startup to go international is part of a criteria. But when we look about who we embark, we look, of course, at the business plan and the willingness to go international, but also I wanted to make this comment because I think it's important about the capacity to go international, to know where you want to go. Some startups come and they say they want to go anywhere in the world. Depending on the maturity of the startups, it's not reasonable. So we really look into startups who know where they want to go. And are they able to deliver where they want to go? And we had an example with a UK startup who didn't realize and it's not even a startup, it's more an SMBs we work with, but we didn't succeed to deliver. We signed deals with them, right, in continental Europe, but we struggled because they didn't analyze enough the cost of the borders, of the cost of being a Brexit, and this overcomplicated the delivery, the services. So it's also complex to go international to really make sure that we are able to support and we align with startups and the corporate, but who does what to support the execution at the international level.
Upen.
Yeah, thanks. And growth is a fantastic stage in the company, right? And the successful companies will need to tackle growth differently as their maturity, acceptance by the market increases. There are two fundamental things when it comes to growth. One is ability to perform its own business functions, right? Which means you talked about, can I deliver? So you suddenly have a company in Germany expanding and buying a few startups in Asia to complete their value chain. Wait a second, how do I do invoicing in Indonesia and Germany at the same time? Do I have my technology architecture set up for that? So these are fundamental discussions. How do I manage the growth in terms of people? Do I have right people management software? Does it interact with my financials? How do I look at hiring more people, but then putting them in a different geography and having them a different currency paid? These are really very fundamental things which you have to think about it right in the beginning. And hence we are happy to offer with this Grow at SAP program that's exactly targeted for those. Get started very fast, public cloud, get your people management, get your technology strategy right in. And that then becomes very interesting for the second key contributor to the growth. These are the investors. Now, when the investors, so you're ready with your MVPs or going to IPOs, any stage, the investor is going to look at it, okay, you actually have a massive growth strategy. You can show it to me from a technology perspective, and working with SAP in that case counts a lot for them. Says, okay, you guys are serious. Then that becomes another interesting way for the investors to look at that startup differently too.
Yeah, I think thank you very much for those. I think it's really a complex problem. This is why we're discussing it also in our corporate peer group, because there are very many strategies that you can use, but then it's also a lot about sharing those between different initiatives and growing also from the experiences of the others. So we already talked a little bit about the question of mindset, right? So there's a mindset question in the scale-ups, in the corporates, and between both. And so I wanted to go to one last topic that we talked about preparing this panel, which is a new business model that you have developed together with some corporates, and I think which includes a little bit also the question of mindset and mindset shift, so mind shift. The decarb fast track that you have developed with a couple of corporates, and I think it's really interesting because it has also an international application. And so please tell us a little bit about it and how it works and maybe how you put it together.
It all started last summer with the crisis of energy prices. We are definitely a good actor to tackle this crisis. And we were thinking, how can we do to accelerate our go-to-market to be sure that we will be helping, supporting our European industrials because they are facing an emergency as they are not equipped to face this crisis. We have a solution. We are struggling accelerating our growth in European markets. So how can we do? We have the chance to work with very good partners, long-term partners in Metron. I was talking about Dalkia from EDF Group. We have in our investors BNP Paribas, which is supporting very actively our growth activities. And we're working with AWS as our cloud provider, and they really support us in our international growth. So we bring them together and we say, okay, what can we do all together? We know that industrial doesn't have any budget for that. It's too short. They need a solution. They need something easy to activate. And we built this program, which is a pre-finance program, give them the opportunity to join 100 pioneers, developing our solution. We are supporting their teams to take control of our solution, driving different projects of energy optimization during 2 years, reducing their consumption. Our solution is activated within 2 months. So it was tackling this emergency. But we needed financial support, and they all said yes. So we have bring to the market the opportunity for 100 sites to be equipped with our solution, to start reducing their energy consumption, so their bills in the end, and participating to a more decarbonization goal. And the final goal is to reach all together 100,000 tons of CO2 avoided. It's like 1 year of a carbon plant, a coal plant. So they all said yes. So we see that when we have to react fast, we can have big corporates partnering with us. We are still recruiting these pioneers, and we finally launch the operations in September. And we are doing so in all Europe, in UK, in Germany. We have first sites in Germany thanks to this big program, but also in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal. So it's a European success. And we have learned to work very closely with different cultures, with our partners, because we have been shaking them a lot because we wanted to go fast. And with big corporates like BNP, it was very hard for them, but have been very supportive. We had a great sponsor, a champion, a captain, a business captain with us that has been looking for all the support we needed within the group, doing the same thing with AWS, with Dalkia. And we are very proud of this success because it was not easy. I have here my communication manager that has been working so hard during 6 months to support this program, but it shows that it can happen. We can go faster, we can be efficient, and we can be very useful for industrials, European industrials, concretely.
That's a great example also of the mind shift and the mindset that you need to make this happen also, because in the corporates then you have to have the people who act fast. Are you acting fast also in Eviden and also in SAP? I guess that yes, so maybe you can have an example to share with us.
But I can tell you that we shake as well. I'm known to shake and push, and I really love the example. I think that's such a great example, which I think to close a day like today, I think it's a perfect example because it's all about ecosystem being successful together. So looking at example which could be a bit correlated. So I have one of my favorite story also, which is a bit different, but also about building better as an ecosystem, right? Innovating better, which is with BASF, right? So in Germany. And here the idea starts from the customer. Really the customer having a methodology and a digital solution to do some carbon emission assessment for their own plants, for chemicals and process industries. And they were so excited about their solution, they wanted to go to the market with it. So they came to us to develop a platform, so to become their partner. We built the platform with their digital and methodology in terms of carbon assessment for chemicals and process industry. So it was really co-innovation. So we went to the market, we launched the solution last summer. And of course, to do this carbon assessment, you use the data from the customer. So as you know, the quality of the output, right, is very much related to the quality of the data you input. And at this stage, so we did the test for BASF themselves, right, to get what you get in terms of carbon assessment, putting in all the data they had from utility input, process output, internal materials, and the result was what it was, right? And then we added a startup, right? We onboarded in Scalar a very small startup, 3-guy startup in Berlin, which is called Carbon Mines. And the specificity of this startup is that they have 80,000 data sets of 1,000 plastic components from all over the world. And this is so we now onboarded Carbon Mines into that platform with BASF, so it's really Eviden, BASF, and Carbon Mines, so 3 parties as well, triangle ecosystem, to build a unique solution, and we go to the market together, and we sign the first deal together. So it's, and now BASF is coming also to us to say, how can we add cybersecurity to it? How can we go beyond Germany? And that's the next steps, right? So it's, so I love this example because it's really about creation from the customer ideation first, and really working with startups and big partners together.
Yeah, and then we come back to the first point, which is communicating about it, having good examples, having projects that really work, and then talk about it like we do today.
Exactly.
To give the idea also to others to co-innovate on those kind of projects. Upen, can you share an example with us? I mean, you have many, I'm sure, at SAP, but
yeah, maybe
one.
More than example, I'd like to bring you one aspect. It's your speed or the fastness. What do you mean by fast? It's very important for us, at least at SAP, to be relevant to all innovators around the world. We can't do that sitting in Waldorf in Berlin. We have to be out there. We have to be out there. We have to be present in Japan, in China. We have foundries everywhere. We have to have a foundry in California, South Africa, everywhere, because that's where the innovators are. If you're too far away from them, you will automatically not get that wind speed. Will not fail that often, you'll not improve that often. So I think that's one consideration. I'd like to put it in many of the European discussions that we have. We want to be a lot, but where are we really present? And I guess we are committed, both with our software and people, that's SAP, to all the innovators in the world, and we do our bit.
I think that's a very good conclusion. So we talked about shaping and also shaking things up, right? So I think what's the most important thing also is you have to have the people who are willing to shake things up, right? So the individual people, like the 3 of you and everyone here in the room. So I think we're here because we want to shake some things up also in Europe. So thank you very much for sharing all of those experiences and good examples with us. And Upen, I will keep you on stage for some more information about how all of this is developing in the future and how do we have to adapt, right, going forward in all of this journey. So, Isabelle, thank you. Anne-Laure, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we continue.